Shiro here for Umbra Games with a review of Ratchet & Clank on PlayStation 4. This Ratchet & Clank was released on April 16th, 2016, and while basically an HD upgrade of Insomniac's 2001 hit by the same name on PlayStation 2, they've instead marketed this as a reimagining, basing it on a film that released in theaters on April 29th, 2016, which itself was based on the 2001 game. So yeah, the game based on the movie based on the game. I've previously only played both the first game 10 years ago now, and a sort of spin-off of the core game called Ratchet & Clank Full Frontal Assault that was released on PS3. While the universe and jokes may be somewhat aimed at an E for everyone rating, don't be deceived, there is quite a bit of fun to be had here. Our main character, Ratchet, is from the Lombax race and lives on the planet Velden. An evil alien corporation known as Drex Industries has constructed a deplanetizer and are dismantling planets across the galaxy in order to use their pieces to construct new home planets for the Blarg, since their homeworld has been so over-industrialized that they have to live underground because of pollution. While Drex Industries is building their army of warbots, a defect is produced and escapes the factory, landing on Velden and running face-to-face, or head-to-head rather, with Ratchet, where he decides to help the little guy and named him Clank. Previously that day, Ratchet had tried out for the Galactic Rangers in hopes of becoming a hero and traveling the galaxy, but after tryouts, he's refused for being so small. See, I told you we were aiming for the E for everyone. But let's get into the gameplay. Ratchet & Clank is what I'd call an action platformer. There are tons of platforms, lots of jumping, but unlike a Mario game, it's all about the weapons and shooting. A company called Gadgetron has vending machines all over the place where Ratchet can use bolts found in crates and drop from enemies to buy a variety of guns and upgrades. We go from the starting plasma pistol and grenades to the hardcore side of a nuke launcher and a plasma sniper rifle to a couple more novel things like the Groovatron that shoots disco balls that makes all enemies stop and dance. And of course the Sheepinator, which turns foes into sheep. I mean, sure, they have the childlike appearance. What we're looking at is a gameplay mechanic we like to call crowd control. For those tactically overwhelming fights, you know, where you're outnumbered 15 to 1. To upgrade weapons, you collect pieces of Veritanium from hidden deposits in the ground, and it's also randomly dropped by enemies. Each gun has its own set of characteristics to upgrade and are done in a hex grid format. Weapons have hidden skills and abilities you can unlock by opening all upgrades around it. At first the grid seems pretty empty, but through repetitive use you increase the gun's power level up to 5, each level opening new purchase upgrades. I tell you what, they nailed it. Upgrading weapons is super addictive. The shooting itself feels good, with a little help of some auto-targeting, as a red reticle will appear when you target close to an enemy. The default is L2 to aim and R2 or circle to fire, but there's a pre-made control setting in the menu that allows you to make it L1 and R1, which was a great design decision because that's what feels natural because, you know, every other shooter. While holding aim, you lock Ratchet into a strafe view, allowing you to jump and dodge incoming fire while returning your own. Now there are also some gadgets to find, some hidden and some that are story-driven. Some help navigating maps like the helipack for Clank. Others are used to solve puzzles, like raising and lowering water levels, or playing the lock-cracking minigame with the Trespasser, where you have to make all the beams of light hit the appropriate contact to gain access to areas. There are also segments where you can control Clank, using gadget bots as springboards, bridges, and power packs to move the level along. Most of these puzzles felt a bit too much on the simple side, but they were fun to solve nonetheless. The game also features some air combat segments, where you pilot a ship in a very Star Fox-esque way, taking down little ships to acquire missiles to take down larger targets, and yes, you can barrel roll. There are also 2 planets where you can do some hoverboard racing for prizes, and there are grind rail sections as well to help break up the game and provide some diversity in gameplay. There are a dozen or so planets that you'll visit during Ratchet & Clank, each one pretty visually contrasting from the last. Planets offer a few story objectives and also optional ones, and also contain hidden golden bolts used to unlock extras in the art gallery, as well as open up some different costumes and ship skins. You can also find the aforementioned hidden Veritanium deposits and card packs. More on those in a minute. You reach new planets by finding infobots from various NPCs or completing objectives. You can travel back to any planet you visited, as long as there's not a story point temporarily restricting you. I do have to say I'm very impressed with how this game got treated with the upgrade to PlayStation 4. These cityscapes and textures just look absolutely fantastic. While you do face Blarg troops and warbots nearly everywhere, the planets also have their own indigenous creatures and haywire automatons for you to deal with. I guess honestly, if I had one more desire for enemies, it would be the presence of more bosses. Now, one thing I don't remember in the original PS2 was the card collecting. Enemies have a chance to drop cards, and you can also find hidden packs in secret areas. There are quite a few to collect, each in sets of 3, that unlock bonuses like increased Veritanium drops, as well as opening up versions of all guns in the challenge mode. More on that in a minute. One great game design decision of card collecting is your ability to trade in any 5 cards that you have duplicates of in exchange for a card you want, making it so you're not just sitting there waiting for a random number generator to get you that final card you need in order to complete your collection. There's also a special set of 9 Rhino cards, with a Y, to be found that, when collected, can be traded to a vendor for an insane quick-firing rocket launcher gun. It can't be purchased with bolts like the others. So I think this is the first game of this type I've played with an actual New Game Plus mode. Deemed the Challenge mode, it opens up after completing the game, allowing you to take all of your weapons and upgrades and start the game again. This time with a little more difficulty, which is good because about 90% of the game is just a tad towards the easy side. In addition, if you collect all 3 of the aforementioned cards for a gun, you unlock the ability to buy the Omega version of it from vending machines, allowing you to level up each weapon to 10, increasing its power and upgradability. I was starting to wonder towards the end of my playthrough what I was going to do with all the extra bolts I'd acquired, and it turns out it wasn't even enough to buy the first Omega upgrade for the basic blaster. Fortunately, each planet card set you collect ups the Raritanium drop rate by 5% each, and Challenge mode includes a bolt multiplier giving greater rewards for the more killing you do without taking damage. I actually started again and played the first couple stages, and honestly, if I didn't have such a crazy backlog at the moment, would happily enjoy going through the game again even. Granted, as I mentioned, I haven't played a Ratchet Clank in a long time, so I haven't been through the 6 core games released over the last 15 years, and I feel like the 3D collecting things platformer is a pretty vacant spot on our current generation of systems. The only other AAA game I can think of right now that came close to this format is Knack. That came out during the PS4 launch and really didn't have a whole lot of staying power. So I'm not objecting to the notion that I've been hankering for some platformer, and Ratchet & Clank arrived just in time. So if you haven't ever played a Ratchet & Clank game, I would actually highly advise you to jumping into the series on this one. I think I spent close to maybe 12 to 14 hours for a playthrough, and the game came out at a pretty decent price. Throw in a challenge mode playthrough, and the value's definitely there. If you're a fan of the series and you have been playing them all the way through, there may not be a whole lot new to see here, but just have confidence that Insomniac is still taking care of the series. Maybe you'll get another sequel one of these days. Ratchet & Clank is a 3D action platformer, and rated as such, receives an 81 out of 100 on my scale, keeping in mind that 50 is an average, all the way down to 0, which is worthless. This is Jiro from Umbra Games. Thanks for watching. If you'd like notifications when I post videos, you know where the subscribe button is. I'm also on Twitter, @Umbra Games.